your kingdom here. Let the
Hello, life group leaders. This is just kind of an informational video to give you today because last week, or the last time I did one of these videos, I covered week 34, which is the last one in the original curriculum, Following Jesus Together. And we're going to begin Ephesians next week, and I have just emailed all of you both the original packet that I gave out on Ephesians, which is pretty bulky, pretty large, had a lot of information in it to cover in each session, and also I emailed you a revision or a summary of the first two lessons that you can use. What I did is I went back through that curriculum the first 2 weeks, and I put it in the format that we are used to with this Following Jesus Together curriculum. And so there's just one slight variation, which is I started with a starter question or an activity. I can't remember. I think it's just starter questions at the beginning of them to kind of help facilitate that discussion and get it going. And then you go into the scripture. One thing you'll need to realize is that whenever you're storying, that's a hard word to say, but whenever you're doing that in Ephesians, it's going to be somewhat different because you're not storying a narrative, but you're telling the story of a letter. And so what I'm going to try to do is kind of get inside my own head whenever I'm telling these stories, and in my mind, I'm going to be sitting there writing this letter to the Ephesian church, and I'm going to be just saying out loud what I would be writing. And so maybe you've seen some theatrical productions or some TV shows where somebody starts writing and you hear this voiceover in their head, and they're saying what they're writing on the page. Obviously, you're not going to look down and pretend you're writing, but at the same time, kind of internally, that's what I'm picturing myself doing, because you're wanting to communicate this information. And the reality is that for centuries before people had this uniform writing process, they would story the stories of the Bible. And so I want you to be able to do that. I want you to at least kind of work your way through that, giving as much information as you can, because remember, you're going to go back through the scriptures, and this does not have to be a word for word verbatim quotation of the first chapter of Ephesians, because you're going to cover the whole first chapter in the first lesson, and you're going to hit most of the major points in that, and there's a lot of meatiness in that first chapter of Ephesians. And so that's why I went back and tried to break it down a little bit for us and have those different discussion questions. You'll notice in the first 2 weeks of this curriculum, I did not do what they did and give you the same 4 questions at the beginning of each lesson. That's what we had in the Following Jesus Together curriculum. These are going to be different sets of questions each week, both in the first set and in the life application set. They're going to be different for each lesson. So tonight, if you're planning on branching next week and you're meeting with your groups one last time before you do that, I want to encourage you to share stories of how the life group has impacted you, how other people in the group have impacted you. And so not just you personally, but encourage the people in your group to do that, and just have a sharing time, testimony time, and encourage them and tell them that, hey, this doesn't mean the end. This just means that we're branching and we're multiplying to be obedient to God. And boy, this summer I would encourage both groups to get back together for fellowship. You're just going to be looking at the first 6 weeks of being in these new groups, and so come back together in the summer as a whole group and any additional people that they've added, and have a couple of fellowships, and then we'll obviously again start in the fall. But we've got 6 weeks left that we're going to go in this curriculum, and so I'm looking at my calendar now as I'm talking to you, and it looks as if 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Probably is going to take us to the 27th of May because we may take off the night of Mother's Day so that people can spend that with their families. But so it's going to take you through the end of May, and then we'll be off for June and July and the first part of August, or maybe even all of August. We'll decide that later. But enjoy being with your groups tonight. Boy, get in the Word if you're still have week 34 left to go, and let's continue to make disciples faithfully. I think I mentioned this earlier, but I sent all of you an email just a few minutes ago with some detail in it about those curriculums. So if you have any questions before tonight or even in the coming weeks, please don't hesitate to give me a call. I think most of you all have it, but my cell phone number is 479-899-1254. Thanks a lot. I hope you all have a blessed night tonight.